Chapter 2111. Return to the village. Chapter 2111. Return to the village. Outside of Four Corner Village, a group of cultivators descended. This group had frightening auras. The leader was dressed in a long robe and bore an air of authority. This group of people was the members of the Nanhai family. The cultivator in the lead was Nanhai Wuji. He was the top giant figure in the Shangqing domain and the chief elder of the Nanhai family. His ability was monstrous. This time, he had personally led his people here. It was apparent how much importance they placed on the changes of Four Corner Village this time around. The Nanhai family was more deeply connected to Four Corner Village than most forces of the Shangqing domain. Hence, they placed the greatest importance on the village. The proud son of heaven, Muyanlan, was a son-in-law of the Nanhai family. Muyanlan naturally had come along. He stood beside Nanhai Wuji. He wore a long golden robe and was very elegant, giving off an otherworldly vibe. A frighteningly sharp aura emanated from his gaze. After many years, this was the first time Muyanlan had returned. The rule in Four Corner Village was that those who left could not return to the village unless they had special circumstances. Muyanlan had long been unsatisfied with this rule. For many years, he had wanted to return for a visit, as well as lead the members of Four Corner Village out to truly face the outside world. However, he couldn't change the village. Now an opportunity had arisen. Four Corner Village finally decided to interact with the outside world. "Lan, let's head in," said Nanhai Wuji beside him. Muyanlan nodded his head. The group of people then walked towards the glimmer of sky. Now the rules of Four Corner Village had changed. Before this, Four Corner Village was an illusory world. Now it was a physical space. Other people could truly sense where Four Corner Village was located. Hence, the glimmer of sky could no longer prevent cultivators from entering. After their group headed in, more cultivators descended. They were cultivators from other top forces. After receiving news of this place, they rushed over to Four Corner Village. They were arriving one after another. In Four Corner Village, when the members of the Nanhai family entered, Muyanlan took a few steps forward. A familiar sensation swept over him. He looked at the independent space with skies filled with multicolored lights. Four Corner Village was still the same. However, things had also changed. The multicolored lights merged with the relic and enveloped the space, transforming it into a true land of miracles. In the village, someone nearby turned around and looked in the direction of their group. The person's heart trembled slightly. However, someone spotted Muyanlan, and their heart quavered. The person pointed at him and said in a trembling voice, "You are the young master of the Muyan family." Muyanlan glanced at the other party, and then nodded his head slightly. He then walked towards the village. People from the village kept gathering around to see the commotion. They were busily discussing as they cried out, "Muyanlan is back!" In the distance, the people who were busy cultivating and seeking fateful encounters looked over in their direction. Muyanlan had returned? They turned around and looked over in their direction. They saw the cultivators of the Nanhai family, as well as Muyanlan. The figures of Muyanlan and the rest of the Muyan family dashed over very quickly. A short while later, the group came face to face with Muyanlan and the others. Muyanlan smiled happily and said, "You have returned." "Father," Muyanlan said as he bowed slightly. "Elder brother," called out Muyan Shu. He sounded familiar, yet somewhat distant. "Little Shu," replied Muyanlan as he walked up to Muyan Shu with a smile. He hugged Muyan Shu's shoulder and said with a smile, "I never imagined that little Shu has grown so big." Muyanlan has returned. Are those the members of the Nanhai family around him? Far away, countless gazes were looking in their direction. Endless whispering could be heard. Even the cultivators from the outside world were extremely concerned. Muyanlan had returned. It appeared that Four Corner Village was about to turn lively. "Elder brother, someone bullied me," said Muyan Shu to Muyanlan. It seemed that he had become emboldened. He had heard that his elder brother had become well known outside, and was a prominent figure with extremely high cultivation. "Who bullied you?" Muyanlan asked. "Blind Tai and Yi Futian," Muyan Shu said as he turned and looked into the distance. Underneath a tree stood Blind Tai and Yi Futian. There were many youths around the two of them. Blind Tai stood there, not moving an inch. Yi Futian glanced over in their direction. Coincidentally, Muyin Lan was also looking over at him. They locked gazes with each other. When Yi Futian saw Muyin Lan's gaze, he could faintly sense that Muyin Lan was also an extremely sharp figure. He would most likely be hard to deal with. Yi Futian had heard from Old Ma that Muyin Lan was already famous in the outside world. He was now cultivating with the Nanhai family, and had married the princess of the Nanhai family. Muyin Lan swept a glance at Yi Futian, and then shifted his gaze away and said, "Give me a moment." As he said this, he stepped forward and walked towards a place. Not long after, he reached the outside of the private school. Muyin Lan bowed slightly and said, "Student Muyin Lan has come to greet Master." Back in the day, Muyin Lan had also been taught by Master. It was not just him. Anyone who could cultivate in the village was one of the Master's students. This was the bond between student and teacher. Regardless of what position Muyin Lan held now, he needed to understand the etiquette and would come to greet Master. After venturing to the outside world, "You are no longer my student. There is no need for ceremony," said Master. His voice was extremely calm. He had established a rule that the villagers should not simply leave Four Corner Village, and those who left should not return. At the same time, as long as the person left, their relationship as teacher and student would end there. Hence, Master said that Muyin Lan was no longer his student. Back then, I received Master's guidance in my cultivation, and have benefited greatly from it. Although I have left the village for many years, I am still Master's student, said Muyin Lan. How thoughtful of you, replied Master. Muyin Lan continued. Master, I heard that Four Corner Village has changed and will interact with the outside world. In your opinion, what will the village be like in the future? Before you came, I have already said that the matters of Four Corner Village will be determined by the will of the village. After the inheritors of the 7 major divine techniques appear, they will decide the future of the village together. I will neither take part nor intervene, replied Master. Muyin Lan did not say any more. He bowed towards the private school and said, I understand. As he said this, he turned and walked away, leaving the place. Muyin Lan walked towards the ancient tree. Most of the people in the village were there. Muyin Shu and the others followed behind him, heading over there. Muyin Shu had a cold and indifferent expression. He had a brazen murderous aura, as he stared at Yi Futian and Blind Tai. He was also looking at the cultivating youths. He couldn't stand looking at them. They were all lackeys of Yi Futian now. They were pathetic ants that hopped on the bandwagon. Even if they could cultivate, what use would that be? Muyin Lan stopped in his tracks as he looked towards Blind Tai and Yi Futian. Blind Tai took a few steps forward. Although he could not see, he was facing Muyin Lan. A formless aura was surging from him, causing this space to feel somewhat suppressive. An outsider? Said Muyin Lan as he looked past Blind Tai at Yi Futian. For those from Four Corner Village, Yi Futian was also an outsider. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2112, Condescending Attitude. Chapter 2112, Condescending Attitude. Yi Futian looked at Muyin Lan and noticed the people around him, who were from the Nanhai family. He said, The people with you are also outsiders. Is that wrong? No, it's not, Muyin Lan replied. A surge of invisible energy sprang from Nanhai Wuji's body and pressed on Yi Futian. Frowning deeply, Yi Futian stared at Nanhai Wuji. He certainly sensed how dangerous Nanhai Wuji was. I heard that the great emperor once issued an injunction that forbids master cultivators from setting foot in the Four Corner continent. Yi Futian spoke in a flat voice. Nanhai Wuji's expression remained the same. Of course, he knew about the injunction. No one in the Shangqing domain didn't. It was why they had never visited Four Corner Village or explored this corner of the world in the past. He finally had a chance now. That being said, he didn't dare to ignore the great emperor's decree. He only came, knowing that he wouldn't be punished. The divine priest of the great emperor issued a new order several days ago. The injunction regarding the Four Corner continent and Four Corner Village is lifted now. Muyin Lan looked at Yi Futian and said. His words set tongues wagging. Some people already heard about it through families living in the outer realms. But the majority of the crowd didn't know about the news yet. People living in Four Corner Village were particularly confounded. They used to be protected by the Great Emperor's order. What did it mean to them now that the injunction was lifted? Yi Futian also showed a surprised look on his face. Why would the Great Emperor revoke the decree all of a sudden? When did this happen? Old Ma narrowed his eyes and asked. The Great Emperor is the ruler of the Divine Prefecture. There is nothing he doesn't know about. Everything that happened in Four Corner Village didn't escape his attention either. The injunction is not necessary anymore now that Four Corner Village has transformed and is connected with the outer realms, Muyin Lan said calmly. An odd look came over Yi Futian's face. He recalled his time in the Eastern Barren Territory many years ago. The decree about the Eastern Barren Territory was revoked, and Princess Donghuang later showed up and took away Mr. Du after that. He entered the upper worlds and almost died in the Void Realm. Princess Donghuang gave him a chance to survive by letting him go through the gate of the Void Realm. It was how he arrived at the Divine Prefecture. Now, the injunction about Four Corner Village was also lifted after his arrival. These two things seemed to be somehow connected. Could it be a simple coincidence? It also meant that he was under the surveillance of Donghuang the Great wherever he went. He never escaped from his watch. Since the Great Emperor knew about everything that happened in Four Corner Village, he certainly learned about Yi Futian's visit. It was not a good feeling. On top of that, Yi Futian couldn't figure out why Donghuang the Great Emperor chose to revoke his decree now. Perhaps, it was only because Four Corner Village didn't need to be sequestered and protected anymore now that its laws had changed, and it had opened up to the outer realms. Since the injunction is lifted, even outsiders can take action in Four Corner Village now. Muyin Lan stared at Yi Futian and continued speaking. An invisible form of pressure immediately enveloped Yi Futian. Yi Futian was reminded of the time when he was facing Ninghua back in the days. Muyin Lan was a renowned figure in the Shangqing domain. He must possess tremendous power. His cold voice seemed to be another form of intimidation. Yi Futian was not the only one affected by Muyin Lan's energy. Even Blind Tai, Old Ma, and others sensed the invisible pressure. The entire village would be put in grave danger if outsiders could fight inside the village. After all, most villagers were common folks. They had no clue why the Great Emperor revoked his decree at such a critical moment. Was it because the village stopped being cut off from the world? You shouldn't forget who you are just because you have been outside. Blind Tai faced Muyin Lan and said. Even though they were allowed to fight in the village now, Muyin Lan shouldn't forget that he was born and raised in Four Corner Village himself. A battle inside the village would only damage his hometown. Of course I know who I am. Muyin Lan looked at Blind Tai and said. This is where the Muyin family resides, and is where I was raised. No one wants the village to be prosperous more than I do. I hope the villagers can go to the outer realms and broaden their horizons. Therefore, I certainly don't want a clash to happen in the village. I would hate to see anyone starting a fight here, let alone myself. Why are you still talking if you know all that? Old Ma spoke evenly. I'm only reminding you not to forget who you are. You should remember who grew up in the village, and who came from the outside. Muyin Lan scanned the crowd and added. The 7 divine techniques have come out, and everyone in the village will be able to cultivate in the future. I will direct more resources for cultivation back to the village, to help the master train more cultivators. Only that will make sure Four Corner Village gains a strong foothold in the Shangqing domain. I can let bygones be bygones, and forgive your past misdeeds. Muyin Shu's face changed upon hearing his brother's statement. He raised his head, and looked at his elder brother with a puzzled face. Was Muyin Lan going to let them off? Muyin Shu was not pleased with such a decision, but he had no choice but to obey his elder brother. He glared at Yi Futian, and the others with frosty eyes. I heard that you came from the Donghua domain, and have done many things for Four Corner Village. You can stay here, and become a member of the village in the future. Four Corner Village will be a sanctuary for you and protect you from the danger in the Donghua domain, if you repay us, by helping the villagers' cultivation process. Yi Futian listened to Muyin Lan, and quietly stood in place. Old Ma, on the other hand, gave Muyan a death stare. Muyan seemingly magnanimous proposal revealed what a haughty man he was. His condescending attitude suggested that he was the ruler of Four Corner Village, while Yi Futian was merely an outsider. Muyan gave Yi Futian a chance to be a member of Four Corner Village as compensation for everything he had done for the village. Yi Futian could escape from his enemies from the Donghua domain by taking sanctuary in the village. Are you the one calling the shots in Four Corner Village? Blind Tai challenged Muyan in a cold voice. He stood upright like a statue and didn't flinch, even when facing master cultivators like Muyan and Nanhai Wuji. Of course, it should be a collective decision made by the villagers. Nevertheless, I am a member of Four Corner Village. Any suggestion I offered is to bring advantage to the village. I'm sure everyone in Four Corner Village can understand me, Muyan said. I hope you don't forget that you are also a part of the village. Of course I won't forget. However, before making these hypocritical suggestions and presumptuous judgments, you should think first about what you have done for Four Corner Village, Blind Tai responded calmly. It's none of your business whether he stays or not. The village will take care of it. Muyan gazed at Blind Tai in silence for a few moments. Then he replied, I guess I will have to wait and see. After that, he also walked over to the ancient tree and glanced at the young people cultivating by its side. As someone who came from Four Corner Village, he understood that these youngsters would all become extraordinary cultivators in the outer realms. Yi Futian wasn't too bothered by Muyan. He was an outsider indeed. Nowadays, however, he was more important to Four Corner Village than Muyan. To some extent, he didn't stay because he needed Four Corner Village as his safe haven. Instead, it was because the village needed him. That being said, he didn't give too many thoughts to Muyan's speech. Everything would work out in the end. Following the footsteps of the Nanhai family, more and more cultivators came to Four Corner Village. A lot of top cultivators were curious to visit the village, since the decree was revoked now. At this point, another group of people arrived at the entrance of Four Corner Village. The head of the group was also a master cultivator. He took in a deep breath and carefully examined the village. Then he spoke quietly. Turns out it is an independent world. He heard that Four Corner Village only looked like this due to the transformation. What was it like before? He supposed that he would never get an answer. More and more people swarmed into Four Corner Village. In the meantime, a large number of cultivators from the Four Corner continent also gathered here. Many forces in the Shangqing domain sent people here to see what would happen in Four Corner Village. It was quite an assembly on the Four Corner continent. Rumor had it that the future of Four Corner Village might be determined in the following days. Would this magical village become a top force in the Shangqing domain? So far, no one really knew the strength of the village. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2113. 7 Divine Techniques Emerged. Chapter 2113. 7 divine techniques emerged. More and more people had arrived at Four Corner Village, including plenty of master cultivators from some top forces. These visitors were attracted here since the injunction was lifted and the rules had changed. Their arrival turned the village into an even more crowded and bustling place, which was not easy for some villagers to get used to. The village was packed with cultivators from the outer realms. All of them possessed great abilities, which brought tremendous pressure on common folks living in the village. Yi Futian and Old Ma were having a casual chat while sitting in the yard. There are more and more people in the village. It's not a good thing. Four Corner Village will not be the same Four Corner Village if this goes on, Old Ma said slowly. Besides, most villagers have just begun to cultivate. Being surrounded by a large number of powerful cultivators from the outside makes them feel stressed, especially since these outsiders have been quite active in the village. The outsiders all want to collaborate with the villagers, particularly the ones who inherited the divine techniques, Yi Futian replied. The last divine technique of the 7 divine techniques should come out soon. By that time, The 7 inheritors of the divine techniques will pass judgment together on affairs concerning Four Corner Village. What's your plan when the time comes? Old Ma asked. If they want Four Corner Village to become an independent force, they have to close the village to the outsiders first. They might face a lot of pressure if that's the plan, Yi Futian said. Unless the master. Yi Futian still couldn't get the measure of many people in Four Corner Village. However, even with its great legacy and strong tradition, Four Corner Village could hardly overpower all the strong cultivators from all over the domain. On top of that, the Muyin family. Yi Futian could agree to ally with the Muyin family. Nevertheless, according to Muyin Land's proposal, Yi Futian would be nothing more than a refugee hiding under Four Corner Village's protection. The Muyin family would be in charge of the village, and no one knew what they would do. Yi Futian couldn't even be certain that the Muyin family would keep their promise and let their conflicts in the past slide. At this moment, some people came to Old Ma's house. A voice rang out outside of the yard. Is Mr. Yi here? Yes, please come in, said Yi Futian. The person was clearly asking only for the formality. They were already outside and could see Yi Futian in the yard. As soon as Yi Futian answered, several people walked in. The head of the group was a middle-aged man with a stately bearing. Even without the perfect great path, he seemed to be a ninth-order Run Huang and a master cultivator who stood at the top of the food chain. He smiled and spoke to Yi Futian. We came from the Shangyu deity nation and would like to collaborate with Mr. Yi. The Shangyu deity nation was one of the top forces in the upper third heaven of the Shangqing domain. It possessed formidable power and had a rich heritage. According to the legend, the Shangyu deity nation had a long history and had been a domineering power in the divine prefecture since millions of years ago. Even though it fell into decadence often, it was revived and revitalized each time by some remarkable leader who came out of nowhere. Collaborate how? Yi Futian asked. Four Corner Village is now a gathering place for a variety of people. Many of them came here with ulterior motives. The Shangyu deity nation is willing to help Mr. Yi gain control of the village. Together, we can accelerate the village's development and grow its power. The Shangyu deity nation will be Four Corner Village's close ally. Instead of talking out loud, this person transmitted his voice directly to Yi Futian. Even Old Ma couldn't hear him. The outsiders had been inquiring about the situation in Four Corner Village. Yi Futian was quite popular among the villagers and had a great fortune. He helped several teenagers in the village start cultivation and even inherited the divine techniques. At this point, many people in Four Corner Village already forgot that he was an outsider. They all treated him as a member of the village. Therefore, Yi Futian had a good chance to gain control of Four Corner Village. Nonetheless, the Nanhai family and the Muyin family still posed a threat and might hold the village in check. For that reason, if the Shangyu deity nation threw its weight behind Yi Futian and handled the Nanhai family on his behalf, they could relieve Yi Futian from the pressure and boost the villagers' confidence. In that case, they could kick the Muyin family out and join the game themselves. Although the Shangyu deity nation had enjoyed a good fortune for many years, they were pressured and threatened by new groups rising to power. The Nanhai family in particular had been forging ahead in recent years. They took in Muyin Lan as their son-in-law, while Muyin Lan's younger brother, who was still living in Four Corner Village, would also become an extraordinary cultivator in the future. The Shangyu deity nation also needed to join forces with exceptional and promising cultivators. They would become even stronger if they could reign over Four Corner Village. What's the price? Yi Futian also transmitted his voice back, rather than speaking out loud. There is no price, Mr. Yi. We only need you to permit people from the Shangyu deity nation to enter Four Corner Village, to cultivate after you are put in charge. The village is a magical place blessed by gods, and the Shangyu deity nation hopes to share its good fortune. Besides, the Shangyu deity nation is happy to provide shelter for any villager who wants to travel around the outer realms. We are looking forward to becoming a strong ally of Four Corner Village, the person replied. Only a top force would dare to make such an offer. The situation in Four Corner Village was complicated and unclear at this hour. Anyone who controlled the village would have a target on his back. Yi Futian nodded slightly without explicitly accepting or rejecting the proposal. He said, "I'm sure you know that I'm not a native villager. I came from elsewhere just like you did. Even though I have been highly involved since my arrival, I don't hold sway over the future of Four Corner Village. The villagers trust the master the most. He has already said that the 7 inheritors of the divine techniques will rule the village together. If you have any plan in mind, you can discuss it with them when the time comes." The man looked at Yi Futian and more or less understood what he meant. Then he nodded and said with a smile, "In that case, we will wait for a little longer. Sorry to bother you, Mr. Yi." He nodded slightly at old Ma as well and left with his people. After that, other groups also came to look for Yi Futian and proposed to collaborate with him. Some people wanted to ally with the entire Four Corner Village, while some were only interested in obtaining the divine techniques. It's a touchy situation. Yi Futian walked out of the yard and went to the ancient tree. The teenagers obediently followed his instruction and were sitting in front of the tree to cultivate. Even some outsiders obtained cultivation opportunities. Nonetheless, they couldn't acquire the divine technique simply through comprehension. "Mr. Yi." "Hello, Mr. Yi." The teenagers greeted Yi Futian one after another upon seeing him walking over. They all respected him a lot. Yi Futian nodded at them, smiling gently. He either patted them on the shoulders or rubbed their heads when he walked past them. "Mr. Yi, 5 more people can cultivate now." Fang Siyuan came to Yi Futian and reported excitedly. More and more young people came to the ancient tree to cultivate. It seemed that all the teenagers in the village would be able to cultivate together before long. Just like the master said. "Not bad." Yi Futian nodded and said, "You need to work hard too." "I know," Fang Siyuan said. "I can wait for them." Yi Futian flicked Fang Siyuan on his forehead. Then his eyes fixed on a young man nearby. Duoyu had been sitting there in silence. Wisps of energy were swirling around him. There was abundant energy of the great path flowing into his body, cleansing and transforming him. This space world was established by the spirits of ancient gods. The young men cultivating here were gradually influenced and transfigured by the energy within. This small area in Four Corner Village was an independent world built by the will of the great emperor. And the ancient tree was the root of this world. Yi Futian quietly stood next to the ancient tree. He leaned against the tree and looked at the young men with a smile. The young men felt like the world became clearer in an instant, as an invisible jolt of energy was injected into their bodies. Yi Futian left moments later. Shortly after his departure, an extraordinary phenomenon appeared in the sky above Four Corner Village. Yi Futian, who was already back in Old Ma's yard, looked up. It was the direction of the ancient tree. He cracked a smile when he recognized the extraordinary phenomenon in the sky. All 7 divine techniques had come out. "Duoyu! It's Duoyu!" Many people exclaimed in surprise over there. They didn't expect the inheritor of the last divine technique to be Duoyu. The outsiders also stared at the extraordinary phenomenon. Finally, all 7 divine techniques had emerged. What kind of changes would happen in Four Corner Village in the future? At this moment, the entire village was filled with tension. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2114. Taking a Master? Chapter 2114. Taking a Master. Many people gathered in front of the ancient tree and watched Duoyu obtaining the divine technique through awakening. The villagers were overwhelmed with mixed feelings. After all, Duoyu was only an insignificant orphan in the village. He couldn't even cultivate before the transformation of Four Corner Village. No one expected him to be the one who inherited the last divine technique. The outsiders were also astonished by the magic of Four Corner Village. They couldn't see anything. But Duoyu was able to obtain the divine technique through awakening. It felt like everything was destined to happen. Most importantly, however, they cared about the divine technique itself. Duoyu obtained the divine technique that was previously lost to Four Corner Village. It was the Eye of Samsara. which was an extremely powerful divine method of illusion that could trap the target in the endless cycle of death and rebirth. The target couldn't escape from the illusory world of samsara and would eventually die after his spiritual will was destroyed. At this moment, a pair of intense and eerie eyes became visible in the sky above Duo Yu. A similar scene appeared behind him as well. It was the life spirit he awoke. At this point, a mysterious incident popped into the outsiders' minds. Many years ago, another extraordinary cultivator inherited the Eye of Samsara and left Four Corner Village. Nevertheless, a horrifying tragedy happened to him shortly after he rose to fame in the Shangqing domain. An incredibly powerful cultivator from the palace of the illusory god, a top force in the Shangqing domain, carved out the eyes of the last inheritor of the Eye of Samsara. He stole the Eye of Samsara and integrated it with his own eyes. Therefore, the Eye of Samsara, one of the 7 divine techniques of Four Corner Village, was lost in the outer realms. In order to protect Four Corner Village, the master prohibited the villagers from having dealings with the outer realms. Many forces and groups in the Shangqing domain were hankering after the precious divine techniques of Four Corner Village. Back in the days, Blind Tai also suffered a similar ordeal because of that. He and the inheritor of the Eye of Samsara both had a tragic story, but there was one difference. The person who attacked the inheritor of the Eye of Samsara fully passed off the Eye of Samsara as his own. Blind Tai, on the other hand, lost his eyes in only part of the cultivation method of the divine technique. Therefore, technically speaking, 1.5 divine techniques of Four Corner Village were lost in the outer realms, including the whole Eye of Samsara and half of the divine hammer of the protector. Duo Yu now inherited the Eye of Samsara decades later. People couldn't help but speculate that Duo Yu was a descendant of the cultivator whose eyes were carved out. Either way, Four Corner Village reclaiming all 7 divine techniques was earth-shattering news and had special significance to the villagers. Moments later, Duo Yu opened his eyes, and the extraordinary phenomenon disappeared. Surprisingly, instead of looking exhilarated, he was only sitting still in a daze. Duo Yu, good job. Duo Yu, don't forget about your auntie when you become an amazing cultivator in the future. Loud noises came from all sides. People in Four Corner Village were offering congratulations to the young man. Duo Yu looked at the familiar faces as a fatuous grin spread across his face. He stood up and scanned the crowd as if he was searching for someone. Mr. Yi is at Little Ling's place. Fang Xiyuan walked over and spoke to Duo Yu. Duo Yu immediately ran off. Many people watched his receding figure and noticed his change. He could run much faster after his awakening. He needs to thank Mr. Yi for everything. Exactly. Duo Yu can change his name now. A lot of people laughed and joked. Duo Yu sprinted to Old Ma's house and happened to see Yi Futian walking out from the yard. Duo Yu tried to stop, yet his body kept moving forward. His feet slid down the road, and even his shoes were smoking due to friction. When he finally stopped completely, Duo Yu raised his head and looked at the man in front of him. He didn't know what to say. Instead, he scratched his head and cracked a silly grin at Yi Futian. He wouldn't even dream about cultivating if Yi Futian didn't take him to the ancient tree. Becoming a cultivator was nothing more than a foolish wish for him. Even when the master announced that everyone in the village would be able to cultivate in the future, Duo Yu didn't think that he would be included. He was the most insignificant person in the entire village. Inheriting the divine technique was beyond his wildest dream. Indeed, everything that happened just now felt like a dream to him. Not only could he cultivate now, but the villagers also told him that he inherited one of the 7 divine techniques passed on by their ancestors. Mr. Yi, Duo Yu prostrated himself and knocked his head on the ground to show his gratitude to Yi Futian. He didn't know any other way to express his pure raw emotion. Yi Futian gazed at Duo Yu's skinny body that was dressed in shabby clothes. He didn't stop him. This reticent young man must have been holding back his feelings for a long time. Perhaps it was better for him to vent it in this way. Fang Xiyuan was running after Duo Yu, but he stopped as soon as he saw Duo Yu bowing down before Yi Futian. Instead, he quietly watched them from far away. Yi Futian walked over to Duo Yu and squatted down. He patted Duo Yu on his head and said, Why are you crying? You are a grown man who can cultivate now. You will be responsible for protecting the village in the future. Duoyu raised his head and saw the smile on Yi Futian's face. He used the sleeves to wipe his eyes, yet still couldn't stop tears from rolling down his cheeks. Mr. Yi, can I learn cultivation from you? Duoyu asked, crying. He stared at Yi Futian with shining, expectant eyes. Yi Futian was moved and didn't have the heart to turn Duoyu down. He smiled and nodded, said, Of course. Then you're my teacher now, Mr. Yi, said Duoyu. The villagers often say that a teacher for a day is a father for a lifetime. With you as my teacher, I will finally have a family. Yi Futian was surprised. He outstretched his arms to hug Duoyu and said, Duoyu, everyone in the village is your family. You have always been a member of the village, and will always have families by your side. Yes. Duoyu gave a solemn nod and beamed radiantly despite the tears on his face. Standing next to them, Old Ma was touched by the scene. Although little Ling also lost her parents, she had Old Ma to care for her. On the other hand, Duoyu was an orphan who was tossed around and neglected by everyone. He never dared to show his feelings, and always had a silly grin on his face. No one had paid attention to him or cared about his well-being. Otherwise, his emotions wouldn't erupt so suddenly and dramatically, and he wouldn't see Yi Futian as his dearest family. Honestly speaking, Yi Futian didn't have much contact with Duoyu. He only took him from the riverside to cultivate under the ancient tree. Disciple Feng Xiyuan greets the master, a voice said. Yi Futian turned around and saw Feng Xiyuan also prostrating himself on the ground. He wanted to be Yi Futian's disciple as well. Yi Futian blinked rapidly and had an almost irresistible impulse to beat up this boy. I suppose the master has acquiesced in taking me as your disciple. I promise to follow you around and cultivate studiously, Feng Xiyuan said while knocking his forehead on the ground continuously. Yi Futian stared at him in frustration and said, Aren't you a clever one? Hee, Feng Xiyuan simpered. Master, thank you for your compliment. Yi Futian was at a loss for words. Uncle Yi, I want you to be my master too. Little Ling also ran over to them from afar. And me, Tai Tu shouted. They both kneeled along with Feng Xiyuan and said to Yi Futian, Disciple Little Ling and Disciple Tai Tu greet the master. Little Ling and Tai Tu were still innocent children, who probably didn't understand what they were doing. Even so, they imitated Feng Xiyuan and repeated his words in their tender voice. They simply wanted Yi Futian to be their teacher. After all, Uncle Yi treated them so well. Yi Futian felt like he was coerced by a couple of children. Now he could not extricate himself from this difficult situation, and had no choice but to take them as his disciples. The children have shown their wholehearted devotion. Just take them, said Old Ma. Blind Tai was also waiting nearby. A lot of people were watching them from afar with mixed feelings. The 4 children each inherited a divine technique. What kind of a position in the village would Yi Futian rise to once he became their teacher? No one thought that an outsider would be able to enjoy such a high status. Before Yi Futian's arrival, only the master had this level of prestige. How did Yi Futian achieve that? In the meantime, everyone had to admit that all 4 children only started to show their talents for cultivation after Yi Futian arrived at the village. I believe the other 3's wholehearted devotion. But I can't take Feng Xiyuan, Yi Futian said. Feng Xiyuan was too slippery and crafty. Master, you can't be prejudiced against me. Heaven knows how sincere I am. Feng Xiyuan swore solemnly. But Yi Futian didn't buy it at all. A group of people walked over to them, including cultivators from the Muyin family. Muyin Lan said, The master is the only teacher in the village. Even if he didn't take you as his direct disciples after you started cultivation, you should be grateful and treat him as your master. Why are you all begging to become Yi Futian's disciples? Do you have any respect for the master? The master told us a long time ago that even though he teaches us how to read, write, cultivate, and seek the great path, he doesn't want to officially take us as his disciples. Now that we have met another man who can teach us cultivation, of course, the master wouldn't mind. Feng Xiyuan replied. Feng Xiyuan, you're so pathetic. Even a person like him can be your teacher. Muyin Shu scoffed. Is he good enough? The kids sincerely want to acknowledge Yi Futian as their master. This doesn't seem to concern the Muyan family. Why don't you mind your own business? Old Ma looked up and said to them, "By the way, there is another dispute that needs to be settled now. All 7 divine techniques have emerged. The inheritors are chosen by the spirits of our ancestors and can represent the will of Four Corner Village. Shouldn't we call for the villagers and make decisions on things that are still hanging in the air?" The cultivators from the Muyan family were not pleased. Did Old Ma really want to cast out the Muyan family? They did agree that the inheritors of the 7 divine techniques would work together to pass judgment on the affairs of Four Corner Village. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2115, Village Chief Selection. Chapter 2115, Village Chief Selection. Old Ma is right. The Master said that the inheritors of the 7 great divine techniques could represent the will of Four Corner Village. Now that the village has gone through tremendous changes, the rules should be reset as well. I echo Old Ma's proposal for summoning the villagers to hold a public discussion. Fang Gai, the head of the Fang family, also agreed with Old Ma. Agree, Blind Tai nodded. Their opinion carried great weight since their successors, Little Ling, Fang Xiyuan and Tai Tu, were all inheritors of the divine techniques. All 3 of them proposed to hold a public discussion. It was apparent that Four Corner Village was about to have a new set of rules in place. In that case, let's hold a discussion, Muyan Lan responded offhandedly. Let's ask the master to be the moderator for this discussion and set it up outside of the school, Old Ma added. The crowd nodded in agreement. The master was obviously the best choice. Let's go to inform everyone in the village. Come on. Old Ma, Fang Gai, Blind Tai, and their successors walked in the direction of the private school. The villagers immediately followed behind them. The outsiders, on the other hand, didn't march with them. They watched the crowd from afar, while hatching all types of plans in their heads. Since Four Corner Village decided to end its seclusion and establish contact with the outer realms, they would certainly make some changes. The outsiders couldn't predict what types of changes would occur. A large number of villagers gathered outside of the private school. Almost everyone in the village was there. Facing the outer wall of the school, Old Ma bowed slightly and said, "Sorry to disturb you, Master." Many people bowed to show their respect for the Master. The villagers held the Master in high esteem from the bottom of their hearts. The crowd waited for the Master in silence. Some villagers set up 7 chairs for the 7 families. Yi Futian watched them quietly and couldn't help exclaiming to himself about how simple and unworldly the villagers were. They probably didn't realize that this discussion would determine the future of Four Corner Village. "Please." Muyan Long didn't hesitate. He sat down in the middle, Muyan Lan and Muyan Shu standing behind him. Old Ma darted them a glance and sat in the next chair with Little Ling. After that, Blind Tai sat down with Tai Tu and Fang Gai with Fang Xiyuan. "Duo, you should sit as well." Fang Gai pointed at the empty chair next to him. Duo turned around to look for Yi Futian. After Yi Futian gave him a nod, he walked hesitantly to the chair and sat down. Even so, he didn't seem to belong there. Although Duo could cultivate now, he didn't have the right bearing or sufficient self-assurance yet. Unlike Muyan Shu and Fang Xiyuan, he conducted himself with little confidence. Even after sitting down, Duo still looked nervous and anxious. His eyes darted uneasily to Yi Futian now and then. The other inheritors had family members around and had been taught by the Master in the past. Duo, on the other hand, had never met the Master. Yi Futian was the only person who could boost his confidence. "Don't worry. You have started your cultivation journey. You are a grown man from now on." Yi Futian transmitted his voice to Duo. His words made Duo feel more at ease. Duo nodded solemnly and sat up. More and more people arrived. All the villagers flocked together and stood quietly in the field outside of the school. Muyan Long waved his hand and spoke to the crowd. "Today is a great day for Four Corner Village. Thanks to our ancestors' blessing, the 7 great divine techniques have each found their inheritor. From now on, the youngsters in the village will all be able to cultivate. In the meantime, the master has allowed the villagers to establish contact with and travel back and forth to the outer realms. Our four-corner village will be forever changed. Therefore, we ask everyone to come here today and discuss the future of the village together. Muyin Long sat in the center and took the lead to speak, as if he was still in charge of Four Corner Village. His domineering and condescending attitude didn't change either. The villagers whispered to each other quietly. Muyin Long waved his hand again and said, "Here is the first thing on the agenda. For many years, many cultivators from the outside have been here to look for cultivation opportunities. But Four Corner Village has always been protected by our ancestors. Now the village has undergone a great transformation, and the injunction was lifted. It means that we may be facing dangers and risks in the future. For that reason, while preparing to step outside the bubble and visit the outer realms, we should also ensure the village's security. Therefore, I propose to ally with some groups in the outer realms to strengthen the forces of Four Corner Village. What do you think?" "I don't agree." Blind Tai rejected the proposal right away. He faced the crowd and said, "You want to build an alliance with the Nanhai family, right? Don't forget how the divine techniques of the village were stolen, how I lost my eyes, and what happened to the original inheritor of the Eye of Samsara. I'm sure the Muyin family knows what kind of evil intention the people in the outer realms are harboring. Has the Nanhai family already mastered the Golden Rock Heaven Slayer technique?" Blind Tai questioned Muyin Long. He was filled with distrust of people in the outer realms. "I agree," Old Ma chimed in. "Everyone knows that people in the outer realms have nasty motives. They want to steal the divine techniques from the village. Muyin Long, I'm sure you know that trusted aides are usually eliminated when they have outlived their usefulness. I'm on board with your suggestion, as long as the Nanhai family opens itself to Four Corner Village as well. Unless they allow our villagers to freely enter all of their secret zones and study their core art of sorcery, it would not be an equal alliance. Muyun, everyone is aware that Muyin Lan is currently cultivating in the Nanhai family. Shouldn't you recuse yourself?" Fangai spoke up as well. Muyin Lan looked quite embarrassed. As he expected, Old Ma, Blind Tai, and Fangai teamed up against him. "Feel free to ignore my suggestion if you believe that Four Corner Village doesn't need an ally, or if you think that the villagers can be safe and sound in the outer realms after you have offended all the top forces in the Shangqing domain. Try not to forget that cultivators from the outer realms are now allowed to fight in the village since the decree is revoked. If you believe that I only proposed it for my personal interest, I hope you can figure out a way to solve the upcoming problems." Muyin Long responded coldly. The villagers whispered to each other. They all had different opinions in mind. The common folks were naturally concerned about their safety. It would be a terrible disaster for them if the outsiders started a war in the village. With the master here, who dares to stir up trouble in the village even without the decree? Blind Tai said coldly. The villagers shifted their eyes in the direction of the school at once. Blind Tai was right. Who would have the nerve to cause trouble when the master was here? The master was a godlike figure in the village. Everyone believed that the master was omnipotent. There was nothing he couldn't achieve. The master would be put under quite a lot of pressure if you have the entire Shangqing domain as your enemy, wouldn't he? You are protected by the master in the village. But what about the people who travel around the outer realms? Muyin Long asked. Why would we offend the entire Shangqing domain? Yi Futian joined the conversation at this point. To establish contact with the outer realms, Four Corner Village will act in unity as a single group, just like any other force in the outer realms. Do all the forces in the upper 9 heavens of the Shangqing domain allow any random person to come and go freely? Which top force doesn't have cultivation opportunities? Moreover, even if other forces are not satisfied with the arrangement, we can still hand out limited passes like before. They can cultivate in the village, as long as they have the villagers' consent. In that case, we would at least be friendly with each other. Why would they turn into enemies? Yi Futian said. Many villagers were persuaded by him. However, tragedies might befall someone simply because of the treasure he possessed and the jealousy it caused. Four Corner Village was a unique place, and they might affront other groups in the outer realms regardless. Mr. Yi is right. If we have to be dependent upon others to protect ourselves, we might as well be cut off from the world. Why should we establish contact with the outer realms at all? How could Four Corner Village remain its nature if outsiders keep swarming in like this? Old Ma added, one more thing. Muyan Lan was born and raised in the village, and he is now in cahoots with the Nanhai family. According to what Muyan Lan just said, the Nanhai family would be our enemy, rather than a friend, as long as we don't agree to form an alliance with them, and let them enter the village freely. Since Muyan Lan is one of the 7 inheritors of the divine techniques, I would like to ask what he thinks. It's fine if you disagree with my proposal. But why did you attack the entire Muyan family? Old Ma, how can you say you don't have self-serving agenda? Muyan Lan gave a snort of disgust. Then you can expel the outsiders yourselves. Old Ma shot Muyan Lan a look and continued to speak. The 7 great divine techniques each has an inheritor now. But I think we still need a village chief to lead us forward. This person can put forward motions regarding the village, and the 7 inheritors will decide on the proposals together. What do you think? I agree. Blind Tai still supported him unconditionally. Me too, Fongai said. What about you, Duoyu? Fongai asked. I agreed too. Duoyu nodded. He knew that Grandpa Ma was working together with Yi Futian. All he needed to do was to follow their lead. The villagers nodded in accord as well. It was a good suggestion in their minds. In that case, the village wouldn't be a group without a leader anymore. I think the master is the most suitable person to be the village chief. Master, what do you think? Old Ma turned around to face the outer wall of the school. I won't take the position, the master replied. The villagers were a little disappointed. The master still didn't like to get involved in things outside of the school. He would have been a perfect choice for the position of village chief. We have to look for someone else since the master isn't willing to take up the post, Old Ma said. I will recommend another person who has done many things for Four Corner Village, without any ulterior motive. He would be a fitting village chief. A strange look came over many people's faces. Some of them already knew who Old Ma was referring to. They all looked in Yi Futian's direction. Old Ma also turned his head, and said to Yi Futian with a smile, Mr. Yi is an extraordinary cultivator, with remarkable talents and great fortune. Four Corner Village started to change right after his arrival. Besides, he is currently leading the youngsters in the village to cultivate. I believe that Mr. Yi is a fine candidate for the job. Even Yi Futian was taken by surprise. Old Ma wanted to select him, without consulting with him first. Most villagers were also astounded by Old Ma's recommendation. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Yi Futian had done a lot of things for Four Corner Village indeed. He was the one who helped little Ling gain the awakening and inherit the divine technique. Yi Futian had done a lot of things for Four Corner Village indeed. He was the one who helped little Ling gain the awakening and inherit the divine technique. After that, he brought together the young people in the village and directed them to cultivate under the ancient tree, which helped them start their cultivation journey. Fang Xiyuan and Duo Yu both gained awakenings subsequently. It could be argued that 3 divine techniques emerged owing to Yi Futian. Therefore, Yi Futian certainly made a considerable contribution to Four Corner Village. Having said that, Yi Futian was not a native of Four Corner Village. He was an outsider who possessed great fortune. Many people in the village believed that Yi Futian could be a good friend of Four Corner Village. The Muyan family's previous proposal for expelling Yi Futian wasn't amenable to reason. They seemed to be eager to kick him out after his service was no longer needed. Even so, the villagers weren't keen on the idea of making Yi Futian the village chief. Old Ma's suggestion started a commotion. Most people were not on board. Although Yi Futian had won some popularity and admiration in the village, it was not enough to make him the village chief. The village chief would have authority over the entire village. Obviously, Yi Futian was not esteemed enough. Perhaps more people would subscribe to the idea if Yi Futian was born and raised in the village. However, he was an outsider. Mu Yanlan was only looking after himself, while Yi Futian was not from the village. Some people felt that it was a shame that their advantages couldn't be combined. There was no perfect choice. Old Ma, are you joking? Mu Yanlan spoke in a disdainful tone. Everyone in the village knows that Yi Futian used his good fortune to help little Ling gain the awakening. Are you repaying your personal debt to him in this way? Handing over the entire four-corner village on a silver platter? You have no selfish interests indeed. What an admirable person you are. Little Ling isn't the only one who received Yi Futian's help. A large number of villagers only started cultivating thanks to him. Of course, no one can compare to the head of the Muyan family, who made a desperate attempt to stop someone from gaining awakening and inheriting the divine technique. That is truly admirable. Old Ma sneered and snapped back. Appointing Mr. Yi as our village chief is my suggestion. Little Ling and I certainly support the motion. The Muyan family disapproves. What about the other 5 families? I agree with Old Ma. Blind Tai assented right away. He and Old Ma were certainly of one mind. Wait a moment. Mu Yanlan interrupted the voting process. I have to say that you hatched a good plan. For inheritors acknowledged Yi Futian as their master and sent him to the top directly. Together, you will be in charge of Four Corner Village in the future. What a clever plot. I think that a simple majority can decide ordinary and routine matters. But major issues, such as electing a village chief, should have the assent of at least 6 families or 80% of the villagers. The master said that they would make decisions after all 7 great divine techniques came out, since 7 was an odd number. But he didn't clarify if a simple majority would be enough to make a ruling. Even so, everyone assumed that to be the master's intention. Now Mu Yanlan deliberately interpreted it differently to make it difficult for Old Ma and the others to team up against him. The head of the Muyan family was quite domineering when he wanted to unilaterally expel people. Now he switched sides without hesitation to serve his agenda. How impressive! Old Ma mocked him relentlessly. We're not going to get anything done if we do what you said. Anyway, I still nominate Yi Futian to be the village chief. Other people should vote on it. Uncle Ma, Yi Futian suddenly spoke up at this moment. I'm very grateful for your appreciation, but I haven't been here long enough to win everyone's trust and respect yet. I'm not a fitting candidate for the position of village chief. You or Mr. Fong would be a much better choice. Yi Futian's words touched the villagers. Yi Futian certainly had adequate self-awareness and knew that becoming the village chief, with only 4 families' support, would put other villagers in an awkward position. Old Ma heard Yi Futian and didn't insist on it. He said, in that case, the issue of electing a village chief can be tabled for now. But there is another thing that I think should be settled now. He spoke in a formal and detached voice. His dignified bearing made him seem different from the feeble old man he was before. He scanned the crowd and eventually fixed his eyes on the Muyan family, then said, I don't need to bring up everything the Muyan family has done, but I have to say something about Muyan Shu. I didn't want to be too harsh on a young man. However, he harbors malicious intent and repeatedly attempted to harm or even kill his fellow villagers. For instance, he deliberately interrupted Tai Tu's awakening despite knowing how dangerous it could be. I can't imagine what kind of a man he will become, considering how vicious he already is at such a young age. Therefore, I propose to banish Muyan Shu from the village, so the villagers can be safe from his abuse. You old imbecile, how dare you? Muyan Shu immediately stepped forward and cried out. This ignorant old man dared to propose to expel him from the village. When had he ever suffered such humiliation? The cultivators of the Muyan family, including Mu Yanlan, were staggered. Old Ma wanted to banish his son from the village. Do you know what you are saying? Mu Yanlan said sternly, banishing a young man who inherited the divine technique from the village. I agree to banish Muyan Shu from the village. Blind Tai expressed his opinion. Muyan Shu crossed a line for sure. I'm also on board, Fongai echoed. 3 families approved so far. Me too, Duo Yu said in a low voice. He hung his head and didn't dare to look in the direction of the Muyan family. Although he hadn't met Muyan Shu many times, he wasn't a fan either. Muyan Shu always felt it beneath him to even shot a direct look at Duo Yu. How dare you? Muyan Long smashed his hand on the chair and cracked its arm. His eyes were filled with rage and malice. 4 families have agreed. I have another proposal. Muyan Long is a self-serving man who has never taken the welfare of the village into consideration. He sides with the Nanhai family more often than with us. I believe that Muyan Long shouldn't serve as one of the representatives. Therefore, I propose to unseat the Muyan family and select another family to replace them. The villagers were stunned by Old Ma's words. No one thought that he would propose to expel Muyan Shu and unseat Muyan Long so decisively. The Muyan family would lose their foothold in the village if Old Ma got his way. Old Ma had always kept a low profile. The villagers didn't expect such aggression from him. Apparently, he was taking action against the Muyan family to remove their influence in Four Corner Village and kick them out of the game completely. I agree. Tai Tu and Fongai acted as one. Duo Yu, think carefully before you speak. Muyan Long warned Duo Yu in a threatening tone. Despicable. Blind Tai scorned Muyan Long for attempting to coerce a teenager. I agree. Duo Yu looked down and replied weakly. Even though he wouldn't dare to offend the Muyan family in normal times, he understood that they were on the opposite side of Yi Futian. He certainly knew how to decide at this moment. Muyan Long stared at Duo Yu and spat out 2 words, very good. For out of the 7 inheritors of the divine technique agreed to remove him from his position. Adding to their attack on Muyan Shu, they were virtually declaring war against the Muyan family, intending to kick them out completely. The Muyan family is one of the inheritors of the 7 great divine techniques. Banishing us is quite laughable. Before ousting the Muyan family from the village, are you prepared to lose the Golden Rock Heaven Slayer technique and let it circulate in the outer realms? Muyan Long's voice was as cold as ice. The divine technique will never be lost. The people may leave the village, but the divine technique will not, said Yi Futian. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. You have no right to speak here. As soon as Yi Futian's voice fell, he heard a chiding coming from Muyan Shu. There was hostility in the boy's eyes. You have no right to speak here. As soon as Yi Futian's voice fell, he heard a chiding coming from Muyan Shu. There was hostility in the boy's eyes. He had always been a favorite in the village, spoiled and doted by many people. Everyone had made provisions for him, until Yi Futian showed up in the village. Then, everything changed. Now these rascals actually proposed to expel him from the village, to chase him Muyan Shu, the number 1 amongst his generation of the Four Corner Village, out of the village. How unthinkable and preposterous. Kid, shut your mouth. Fongai barked at Muyan Shu. He never liked Muyan Shu, and had suppressed his dislike for him all these years. Now that he could make his own choices, the Muyan family must be expelled from the village. Although the Muyan family may elevate the overall strength of Four Corner Village, their hearts were no longer for the village, so what would be the use of allowing them to stay? On the contrary, the stronger they became, the greater the threat they posed to the village. Someone who's been expelled from the village had no right to speak. Young Feng Siyuan also stepped forward to scold Muyan Shu. Muyan Shu stared at Feng Siyuan. The fierceness in his eyes was tinged with a faint murderous intent. Feng Siyuan's eyes were full of contempt as he returned the stare without fear. In the village, Feng Siyuan had always been one of the boys who were not afraid of Muyan Shu. Now that he had inherited the divine technique, he had no reason to fear much, especially when this punk dared to shout at his master. You want to die? Muyan Shu stepped forward. The aura upon his body roared madly. Think I'm afraid of you? Feng Siyuan stepped forward as well. The 2 youths faced each other pointedly. They were of similar age, and both had inherited the divine technique, so neither feared the other. Muyan Long and Muyan Lan didn't stop them. Feng Gai and the others also just watched quietly. Tai Tu wanted to step in to help, but Blind Tai stopped him with a hand on his shoulder, as if allowing the 2 youths to continue their conflict by themselves. Buzz, the intention of the Great Path, circulated as Muyan Shu levitated into the air. A magnificent vision now formed behind him, and it was the picture of the domineering Golden Rock. He surveyed Feng Siyuan, who was below, and yelled, "Get up here!" Fang Xiyuan soared into the air, with the light of the great path lingering around his body. Countless streamers of light flowing about, creating a small world in this space. In this small world, the phenomena of heaven and earth were abound with endless changes. There were mountains and rivers and changes in the universe. It was as if a world was hidden in this small space. Fang Xiyuan had inherited the divine technique, miniature world, one of the 7 great divine techniques. Yi Futian suspected that Fang Gai had always known that they had the potential to inherit the divine technique of miniature world. Hence the reason for Fang Xiyuan's name. Now, it seemed that Fang Xiyuan was justified to inherit the divine technique of miniature world. Buzz! The wind was raging as the wings formed by countless divine lights slashed down. Golden brilliance tore through the space as Muyin Shu rushed towards Fang Xiyuan. His eyes were extremely cold, revealing his desire to end Fang Xiyuan's life right here. All the grown-ups were looking at them, and their hearts slightly trembled. Muyin Shu was but a teenager, but the strength he exhibited was truly frightening. It painted a terrifying picture. Even the war between grown men could be no fiercer. Buzz! Divine light smashed down and pierced into the miniature world, but now countless rays of light were blooming inside of it. They shattered Muyin Shu's attack, so that it could not get close to Fang Xiyuan, within the miniature world. The wind tore through the space as Muyin Shu swooped down, and his wings spread wide to shield the sky. Like a truly sacred golden rock, it tried to bisect the space and split it in two. If Fang Xiyuan were to be hit by it, he would no doubt be cut in half. A bright vision erupted from the picture of the domineering golden rock. Tai Tu and the other youths watched anxiously, worried that Fang Xiyuan would get hurt. Boom! The miniature world exploded around Fang Xiyuan. Suddenly, mountains slammed down as rivers were rushing. A terrible sight appeared between heaven and earth. The radiant golden rock swooped down to break through those mountains and rivers, continuing its way through. Fang Xiyuan's eyes still showed some determination, as an extremely sharp light flashed through them. A golden light burst out from the miniature world, like infinite golden divine wings. In the next moment, the crowd saw that several golden rocks had appeared. Buzz! One gigantic golden rock rose against the momentum, as if trying to tear through the sky. It collided with Muyin Shu, who was coming in for the kill. The void shook violently as 2 golden divine lights clashed. Muyin Shu was knocked backward, and so was Fang Xiyuan. The 2 young men separated, but Muyin Shu couldn't hide the great shock in his eyes. Golden Rock Heaven Slayer technique. Not just Muyin Shu, but everyone around them was speechless, to say the least. Everyone in the village was stunned. Even old Ma and Fang Gai stood up and stared at Fang Xiyuan in disbelief. What was going on? In addition to the miniature world, how could he also know of the Golden Rock Heaven Slayer technique? Although it was not in its orthodox form, and far from flawless, as the one released by Muyin Shu, it was indeed the Golden Rock Heaven Slayer technique, just in a less completed form. However, the essence of the technique was clearly detectable. Even Muyin Long and Muyin Lan had their hearts pounding. Their eyes were glued to Fang Xiyuan as Muyin Long looked at Fang Gai coldly and said, "How did you steal it? Had it been leaked by Muyin Shu?" Fang Gai looked bewildered, because he didn't know how this could have happened either. He looked at Fang Xiyuan and shouted, "Fang Xiyuan, what's going on?" Fang Xiyuan turned and glanced at Yi Futian. When he saw Yi Futian nodded to give him permission, Fang Xiyuan said, "Didn't the master already said? Even if the people leave the village, the divine techniques remain. The divine techniques belong to the village. No one can take it away, and no one is irreplaceable." Fang Xiyuan's words and his actions were heard and seen by everyone. In an instant, all eyes were on Yi Futian once again. Was it taught by him? Muyin Long's expression was gloomy and cold. Fang Xiyuan knew the Golden Rock Heaven Slayer technique, which meant that Yi Futian had already begun teaching him, before he officially became Fang Xiyuan's teacher, when everyone was still looking for opportunities. Why would Yi Futian do this? It seemed that this was pointed at them. Even as they went to Old Ma's house that day to chase Yi Futian away, and when Old Ma proposed to expel Muyin family, Yi Futian had already begun to lay the trap for them. No one was irreplaceable, so that even without the Muyin family in the village, the divine techniques would still be here. No wonder Fang Xiyuan treated Yi Futian differently, following him around, trying to apprentice under him. Fang Gai was a little shocked. He didn't expect to be kept in the dark, or that his kid's lips were this tight. Nonetheless, he was ecstatic at this moment. It seemed that the Muyin family was destined to be out of the picture after all. He cast a sideways glance at Yi Futian, thinking that this man was more than meets the eye. He may look calm and nonchalant on the outside, but he had been plotting against the Muyin's family in secret. In fact, Yi Futian had no choice in the matter either. He had offended the Muyin family, and his identity had been exposed. Now that the ban had been lifted, he had to protect himself and avoid being expelled by Muyin Long otherwise. Not even he could guarantee that there won't be some catastrophe in the near future. Muyin Shu regarded Yi Futian with gloomy eyes. How could he know of the Golden Rock Heaven Slayer technique? How did you do it? Muyin Long's eyes still focused on Yi Futian. The head of Muyin family had said before that I am a person of great fortune. Since I am a person of great fortune, I can see things that many can't. Although I cannot inherit the divine techniques, I can still learn something from them, said Yi Futian. So, do you mean that you have mastered all 7 great divine techniques? Muyin Long asked again. I can perceive them, Yi Futian replied. Muyin Long turned his head to look into the distance. So, you comprehended under the ancient tree, because you could see more than the others. It seems that their awakening and cultivation were no coincidence after all. At this moment, Muyin Long knew that he had lost, truly and totally defeated. The ability exhibited previously by Fang Xiyuan suggested that Yi Futian could bring more to Four Corner Village than they had suspected before. In fact, he might already have brought more to them than they knew. The relationship between the Muyin family and Yi Futian was one that could never coexist. In addition, Yi Futian controlled 4 out of the 7 families, and they all supported Yi Futian. This meant that Muyin Long could no longer surpass Yi Futian in the opinions of the people in the village. He knew he was selfish, and Yi Futian had been working to promote Four Corner Village. If it weren't because Yi Futian was not a member of the village, he might indeed have already become the village chief. Muyin Long, the teacher, had witnessed everything. Now that a decision was made, why don't you leave on your own and save some dignity for yourself? Lao Ma said. The request for Muyin Long to withdraw from the 7 great families had been agreed by 4 of them, so even if the other 2 opposed, Muyin Long would still lose. Furthermore, Muyin Shu is arrogant beyond reason. He took action again today and said some crazy things. Please get him out of the village, he continued. Muyin Shu's eyes were extremely cold, but Muyin Long stood up and said, Let's go. Once he finished speaking, he began to walk toward the outside, not intending to stay here any longer. This time, they had lost so completely that he was left with nothing to say. Muyin Long turned to take one last look at Yi Futian and the others, then left as well. He didn't expect that his return after so many years away would end like this. It was a bit ironic. Yi Futian and his people watched the Muyin family's departure, wondering if they would give up so easily and let this be the end of it. Probably not. Muyin Long had great ambition, while Muyin Shu was extremely arrogant. Coupled with the relationship between Muyin Long and the Nanhai family, things would not end so easily. The cultivators from the Nanhai family were now inside the village, including their elder Nanhai Wuji. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 2118. Reluctant to leave. Chapter 2118. Reluctant to leave after Muyin Long and the others left, Old Ma looked at everyone and said, Muyin family's withdrawal means that we are 1 short of the 7 families. Now we happen to have someone here who is an expert on divine techniques. I move to have him replace the Muyin family. What say you? Everyone instantly understood who Old Ma recommended. Undoubtedly, he meant Yi Futian, who had taught Fang Xiyuan the divine technique he also cultivated. All eyes fell on Yi Futian, as people in the village talked amongst themselves. Many agreed that Yi Futian did do a lot for the village. It would be a little overboard to nominate him as the village chief, But as long as he was willing to become a member of Four Corner Village, it would be acceptable for him to replace the Muyan family. What are you hesitating? Without the master, the village would never make it to this point. Are you saying that the master was less worthy than those devious people from the Muyan family? Fang Xiyuan couldn't help but feel displeasure when he heard some dissenting whispers. Master Yi would indeed be the best candidate. Someone in the village spoke up for Yi Futian. Master Yi treated Duo Yu kindly, so that not only could he cultivate, but he also inherited the divine technique with Master Yi as his teacher. I support Master Yi. Someone else piped up. More villagers started to express their opinions. They were simple and innocent in nature. And now more were giving their approval when they heard these testimonials. Old Ma then said, "Everyone please take a stand." Agreed, Blind Tai uttered. I agree too, Duo Yu added quickly. I'm fine with it, Fungi said. Now 4 families had already agreed, which was more than half of the votes needed. I agree too. Shi Kuei of the Shi family nodded his approval as he looked towards Yi Futian. Only the Gu family, which had always been closer to the Muyan family, had not yet expressed its position. Gu Huai, the head of the Gu family, now set his eyes on Yi Futian and said, I have no objection. Perfect, Old Ma said with a smile. Now that everyone has agreed, it's decided. Master Yi, please. Yi Futian looked at Old Ma with a resigned smile. He had wanted to stay behind the scenes, but Old Ma seemed insistent in getting him involved. He had no choice but to walk up to the chair and faced everyone in Four Corner Village, saying, Yi Futian, thank you for your trust. The sight pleased many people, especially for Yi Futian's disciples. The 4 youths smiled brilliantly. It seemed that they were able to keep the master in the village after all. Xiaqing Yuan and the others were glad as well. They were the only outsiders who were allowed to participate in this discussion. Now Yi Futian had completely integrated into the village and became one of its members. Master Yi, the matter regarding the Muyan family has been resolved, but now cultivators from all sides are in the village. If we chase them out directly, we will probably offend the entire Shangqing domain. What do you advise? Old Ma asked Yi Futian. He was giving him a tough problem to solve right off the bat. This matter was indeed difficult to resolve. Any little carelessness would cause serious trouble. Let everyone know that the Four Corner Village is the same as before, opening up once every 4 years. The top forces in Shangqing domain may select a chosen few to enter the village to cultivate. Before this, only people of great luck may enter the village. Now, it can be changed so that only people with perfect great path may enter the village and limit their time inside the village. Yi Futian slowly said. In addition, from now on, Four Corner Village will operate like other forces inside Shangqing domain, as a principality in its own right. If any cultivator from any forces wishes to enter the village outside the 4-year period, they may notify the village of their intent to visit. They may visit once the village has approved their request. From now on, the village would be the same as the other top forces in the Shangqing domain. It would become a force based in the Four Corner continent, and as such, it would not always be available to the outside world. A window every 4 years was a prudent choice and a good buffer. It was similar to what they had done in the past to avoid such changes from being opposed by other forces. That's doable. Old Ma nodded in agreement. The others also nodded. Yi Futian's idea was a pretty good one, taking the needs of both sides into consideration, as well as the feelings of all the principalities in the Shangqing domain. If they were not satisfied with this decision, it would be unreasonable on their end. After all, those principalities themselves would not be so willing to give unlimited access to the outside world themselves. Since the Four Corner Village decided to contact the outside world, they would exist as an entire principality in itself, and no longer as a simple village. Everyone in the village nodded in agreement as well, and approved Yi Futian's proposal. The other 6 presented no differing opinion, so the matter was considered unanimously approved. How long is the proper duration of cultivation for those principalities to stay inside Four Corner Village? Shi Kuei asked. Let's make it 7 days. From this time forward, and starting from today, All forces may stay in the village for 7 days. After this time, they may not re-enter for 4 years. Old Ma spoke, and everyone nodded in agreement. Since the decision has been made, let's inform them, Shirkuei added, not knowing how people from other forces would react after hearing this, and whether or not they would accept Four Corner Village's decision. If they chose not to accept it, the whole thing could be thornier than expected. Today's discussion has concluded. You may leave now, said Old Ma. Immediately, everyone in the village dispersed. The leaders would now communicate the decision to outsiders and leave ordinary villagers out of it. After the people in the village dispersed, Old Ma and the others paid their respect in the direction of the private study by bowing slightly. As they were leaving, the teacher still did not show any interest in the matter. However, the teacher must have seen everything that transpired and would undoubtedly appear when he felt the need to intervene. The group returned to the ancient tree. Now people from all forces knew that this ancient tree was extraordinary, so most of them had gathered here to cultivate, trying to comprehend the tree. People from all forces stood up when they saw Old Ma and the others approaching. They had some ideas as to the kind of decision that Four Corner Village had made. A man walked out of the group, and it was Fong Gai. He looked at the crowd and said, Four Corner Village summoned the people in the village to discuss matters internally, and decisions have been made. You are all aware that the Four Corner Village today is different from how it was before. Great changes have taken place, and the ban has been lifted so that more and more people now entered the village. Today, Four Corner Village has decided to step out of this corner of our world and assume its place as a principality within the Shangqing domain. As such, it would be unsuitable for everyone to continue staying in the village to cultivate. Not long ago, the village made a joint decision. Fong Gai informed everybody of their decision, and the crowd was silent after he spoke. The Four Corner Village that decided to be part of the world would become a major principality in the Shangqing domain, and its potential was endless. No one responded, but everyone had their own thoughts about the matter. The Four Corner Village, isolated from the world, and yet a part of it, meant completely different things to them. It may directly influence the power structure of the Shangqing domain. Furthermore, Dong Huang the Great once sought to cultivate at Four Corner Village, which was part of its history. For many years, Four Corner Village has always been above the world. As a holy land in the Shangqing domain, even the great emperor himself has issued orders to prevent anyone causing trouble inside the village. For many years, people from all forces came to the village to seek enlightenment, and had always treated the village with respect. Now Four Corner Village wants to dismiss all these forces with just a few words. Given us only a few days every 4 years to cultivate inside the village. Isn't that a bit too extreme? A voice was heard, and the speaker was none other than the cultivator from the Nanhai family. He had been the first to resist the decision. The day of the sacrifice happens once every 4 years. In reality, no one would gain anything from entering the village. Normally it's only every 4 years during this time that y'all would come here looking for opportunities. The day of the sacrifice only lasts a few days, so there really isn't much change to speak of. In addition, since Four Corner Village has now decided to join the world, it will become a principality in its own right. Friends of the village who want to come to cultivate may simply let us know in advance, and we will definitely host you with hospitality. However, if all you wanted was the right to come and go as you please, let me ask you this. Would the Nanhai family allow that on their own land? Fong Gai asked rhetorically, then ignored the man as he didn't much care about his reaction. Nanhai Wuji smiled and said, It seems that the village is determined to drive us out. In that case, let's cherish these last few days here. No one said anything more. However, Yi Futian had a feeling that these people were communicating through voice transmission with each other. No one questioned or objected openly further. This land belonged to Four Corner Village, and the village had the right to make its own decisions without anyone's input. Unless they meant to take over the village, all they could do was remain silent. But the displeasure in this silence could be felt distinctly. Watching these people continue to cultivate, Fong Gai frowned slightly. He felt a little uncomfortable, feeling a sense of suppression. This silence, on the contrary, was ominous. Would these forces withdraw after 7 days? What were they planning on doing? Right now no one knew the answer. The Muyan family did not leave the village. Only Muyan Shu was expelled. They had ordered Muyan Shu to be sent to the Nanhai family. As for the others, they were still waiting. Perhaps they were waiting to see what would happen in Four Corner Village after 7 days? Watching everyone's reaction, Yi Futian realized that this matter would not end so easily. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2119. The Fallout. Chapter 2119. The fallout. The next few days passed in relative peace at Four Corner Village. Everyone cultivated side by side, peacefully and quietly. Yi Futian was now a member of the Four Corner Village. He was allocated a residence of his own, and often gave cultivation lessons to the young people under the ancient tree. Gradually, more and more youths embarked on the journey of cultivation. Currently, Yi Futian was sitting under the ancient tree, appeared to be at his leisure. In the distance, a woman stood there quietly, looking at Yi Futian. A voice was then transmitted to him. Do you really have no plan to find an ally? Yi Futian looked in the direction where the voice came from, and saw Ruosa there, radiant as ever. Yi Futian responded with voice transmission of his own. What does the goddess wish to say? He had researched the top principalities in Shangqing domain. And Ruosu came from the Yin family of the upper ninth heavens, which belonged to the middle third heaven. It was a major principality in its own right. It was said that once the Yin family was an ancient dynastic power. In the past, Ruosu would be considered a princess from an ancient royal family. Of course, even as a familial principality, it remained an ancient royal family. Its existence was backed by a profound history. And Ruosa sat far away without looking at Yi Futian. It was as if she didn't want people to know that they were in communication. If you don't start gathering allies, I'm afraid Four Corner Village will be singled out. And Ruosa replied. Many things were not able to be sorted simply by reason. Although this land belonged to the Four Corner Village, many forces had come to this land of great fortune, and knew that it was a divine relic. Ask them to give it up now and leave as if nothing had happened would be easier said than done. Teacher is in the village, said Yi Futian. Although the teacher didn't interfere with affairs regarding the outside world. If someone was to do something to the village, the teacher couldn't ignore it. The teacher is indeed very strong. As far as we know in the Shangqing domain, the teacher's strength may be in the top 5 in the entire domain. However, this time it isn't just one principality that Four Corner Village is facing. In reality, these people also wanted to see just how powerful the teacher is. If he turned out to be stronger than expected, everything would be resolved. But if that is not the case, what do you think will happen? Do you have an idea of the teacher's strength? And Ruosu asked. It seems that the goddess knows some things that we don't. Yi Futian did not respond directly. From what Ruosu had said, he could deduce and reach conclusions on his own. Various forces might be allying preparation to deal with Four Corner Village. However, clearly, these forces had not yet fully reached an agreement, or Ruosu wouldn't be here talking to him. After all, they weren't all of the same force, and their minds and hearts weren't entirely aligned. It was not completely implausible that some of these principalities might use the pretense of allying as an attempt to undermine some of them. But at what price? Would they allow those in the alliance to come and go freely in the future? And Ruosa did not respond, but it was true that she did know quite a few things. In the past few days, various forces appeared to be comprehending and cultivating quietly. But that was not all they did. There were still people coming from the outside world even now. Four Corner Village's attempt to purge these forces from Shangqing domain might not go quite so easily. Thank you, goddess, for the reminder. I will think it over, Yi Futian added when he saw no response from Ruosu. And Ruosa did not try to persuade him further. She merely said, when you are ready, let me know. I will, Yi Futian replied. And Ruosa then got up and left. Yi Futian left soon after as well. He found old Ma and asked him. As we expected, These forces may not give up easily this time, and we may yet face their anger. If we can't find a way to resolve the situation, they might take this opportunity to take over the village for themselves. Old Ma narrowed his eyes and said, even before Four Corner Village had any contact with the outside world, many in the village met an unfortunate fate. Blind Tai was just a more obvious example among them. In fact, there were some cultivators from the village that never returned once they left. Those people have wanted to return to Four Corner Village for a long time. If they find an opportunity, they will destroy this village without hesitation. Old Ma did not doubt the ruthlessness of these people. Such were the rules of the cultivation world. So, do we need to recruit a couple of forces? Yi Futian asked tentatively. Obviously, Old Ma knew more about the village than he did. His impression of Old Ma had long since changed. Old Ma probably knew a thing or two about the true strength of the village. No, I want to see what these greedy people are going to do. Old Ma said coldly. Wait for me here. I'm going to find someone. Sure, Yi Futian nodded. It didn't take Old Ma long to come back with a cultivator who possessed a somewhat chilling aura. It was Gu Huai of the Gu family, clan leader of the Gu family. Yi Futian got up and paid his respects. Gu Huai nodded slightly. Previously, he and Yi Futian had some unpleasant exchanges. When Muyan Long wanted to expel Yi Futian, Gu Huai had agreed. It was clear that Gu Huai supported Muyan Long at that time. However, the Muyan family was now out of the picture. Four Corner Village had rejected them. The divine technique that the clan leader cultivated is the ancient divine immortal form? Yi Futian said. It seems that this village could keep no secrets from Master Ye's prying eyes. Gu Huai stared at Yi Futian as he spoke. There was great aggression in his eyes, which made those around him a little unsettled. People in the village know that I was bestowed with good fortune. Over the years, my luck is indeed much better than most, so I can see many things inside the village that others can't. Yi Futian smiled and continued. Of course, although I could perceive these divine techniques, they belong to Four Corner Village, and only the true descendants of the village may inherit them completely. Gu Huai nodded in acknowledgement. It was almost impossible for the others to learn of it completely. After all, this was the inheritance of Four Corner Village. Gu Huai, I know that Muyan Long had a good relationship with you before, and you have always wanted to experience the outside world. Now that the teacher has given his permission, the village will be a force in Shangqing domain in the future. However, various forces now seem to intend on making Four Corner Village a target, and you must have seen the position taken by the Muyan's family. I hope you will make your own decisions, Old Ma said. Gu Huai looked toward him, and heard Old Ma continued. No matter what, you are a member of the village. The Muyan family has forgotten about this, but I believe you won't. Gu Huai's expression was somewhat serious. At this time, Yi Futian said, there were some misunderstandings with the elder before, but now that I am a member of the village, I will endeavor to do my best to assist the young people of Four Corner Village. The potential of Four Corner Village will inevitably shake up the entire Shangqing domain. Looking at Yi Futian and Old Ma, Gu Huai seemed a little displeased. He turned around and walked outside. Old Ma and Yi Futian looked a little surprised. At this time, Gu Huai stopped and said, Old Ma, you underestimated me. As he finished speaking, he went away. But Old Ma smiled instead and said, in a few days, we will come to you and make amends. He knew that this matter had been settled. He was worried that the conflict would become a thorn between Gu Huai and Yi Futian. Considering that Gu Huai was close to Muyan Long before, he deliberately approached Gu Huai. However, it seemed that he was overly concerned. Just as he had said himself, no matter what, Gu Huai was still a member of the Four Corner Village. In a blink of an eye, 7 days had passed. On this day, Fang Gai, Old Ma, and the others came to the ancient tree, and saw that the cultivators from all forces gathered here. They were facing different directions. They focused on their cultivation, as if nothing was happening. Everyone's 7 days are up. Our village is small. We won't keep everyone any longer. Fang Gai said as he stepped forward. As if they hadn't heard it, they remained quietly cultivating. Only in one direction, someone spoke up. Is this the way of hospitality in Four Corner Village? There are no forces that would wait on their guests as you seem to expect here. If there is, Four Corner Village surely has done far more, Fangai replied. However, no one paid any attention to them. The sight disturbed Fangai, Old Ma, and the others greatly. Clearly, they were acting this way deliberately. Everyone. Fangai's voice cooled a few degrees. He continued, the time has come. Please give back Four Corner Village its tranquility. All the forces in Shangqing domain have gathered in our village. This is supposed to be a grand occasion to be celebrated, and the village should have treated our guests with hospitality. What is the meaning of this, Fangai? Muyanlong asked. Muyanlong? Fangai looked at him indifferently. It seemed that Muyanlong was prepared to side with outsiders after all. For many years, this place has always been a holy land of the Shangqing domain. On this land, there is Four Corner Village, in which the villagers were hospitable and friendly. In return, we also respected Four Corner Village, and dared not blaspheme the village in the least. But now, Four Corner Village is ready to take this place for its own, expelling all others for self-interest, purging all dissidents, and depriving the head of the Muyan family of control over the village. It is devious indeed. A voice was heard, and it was a cultivator from the Nanhai family. In his words, he separated this space from Four Corner Village. It was as if this place was just a place of cultivation in the Shangqing domain, and Four Corner Village was just a part of the Holy Land, completely separating the two. Hearing such words, the people in Four Corner Village were greatly angered as their eyes directed coldly at the speaker. That's right. If you are cultivating in the same space, then let's not reject each other. It's much better if you can coexist in peace. Someone else continued. But if Four Corner Village insists on having its way, then we will have no choice but to seek justice for the Muyan family. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. This was already a direct threat. The Nanhai family used the Muyan family as an excuse to put Four Corners Village in a difficult situation. They actually wanted to seek justice for the Muyan family. This reason was somewhat laughable. It was completely illogical. However, under such circumstances, they were looking for an excuse to give Four Corners Village a warning. If they wanted to banish the Muyan family, it would lead to war. The members of the other forces listened as they sat quietly. They did not say anything. However, this silence seemed to represent their stance on the matter in and of itself. Nanhai family, you are forcefully segregating a portion of Four Corners Village away. You also want to interfere with the matters of the village, Old Ma said. If that is the case, I believe that the name of Nanhai family can be removed from the guest list of the next open day that we have every 4 years. In the future, the Nanhai family will be forbidden from stepping foot into the village. What are your opinions on this? Only natural, Blind Tai said coldly. No problem, said Fangai as he nodded his head. The others also revealed their stance on the matter one after another. This scene caused the cultivators of the Nanhai family to reveal ugly expressions. Their family would be forbidden from stepping foot into Four Corners Village? Also Muyanlong, are you conspiring with the Nanhai family to stand against the village? Old Ma said as he looked at Muyanlong. The village is in the wrong in this matter. As a member of Four Corners Village, am I not even qualified to voice out my opinion? Replied Muyanlong in a cold, indifferent tone. Understood, Old Ma replied, nodding his head. If that is the case, I suggest that Muyanlong has betrayed the village. From this day forth, the entire Muyan family will be banished from the village. What are your opinions on this? Agreed. Blind Tai and the others revealed their stance on the matter. Very quickly they all agreed. They would not just strip Muyanlong of his authority in the village, but would also banish the entire family. The Muyan family was no longer a part of Four Corners Village. I never imagined that, having grown up in the village, I would one day be banished, Muyanlong mumbled. He seemed to be self-deprecating and mocking himself. After he left Four Corners Village, he was renowned far and wide, and entered the Nanhai family. He was currently a prominent figure in the Shangqing domain. However, upon returning to the village, he was not received gloriously, but was instead rather from the village. It was a mockery. If that was the case, he did not need to show any respect to the village. Nanhai family and Muyan family, please leave, ordered old Ma. Nanhai Wuji took a step forward. He only took one step, and the space around him suddenly felt suffocating. A vast divine might enveloped this entire small world. The ordinary folk in the village felt that it was difficult to breathe. They revealed pained looks, and their hearts started to beat intensely. They felt as though the entire world was about to collapse. Are all of you sure of your decision? Nanhai Wuji asked in a loud voice. His voice shook the heavens and the earth, causing the space to tremble. He stood there like a deity with unparalleled authority. The members of Four Corners Village had very cold expressions. Nanhai Wuji was a giant-level figure. Such a figure had powerful destructive capabilities. He could easily destroy a part of this vast space. If a battle of such a scale were to erupt in this space, the village might not be able to cope with it. The villagers would not be able to withstand such a threat. Nanhai Wuji's body gradually floated into the air. He peered into the distance and said, I have long heard of Master's name. I came to Four Corners Village, but have yet to catch a glimpse of Master. I wish to meet Master to ask whether the way Four Corners Village treats its guests is rather inappropriate. As he said this, he took a step forward. He wanted to head over to the private school. In Four Corners Village, the strongest person was the legendary Master. However, no one knew how strong Master was. Nanhai Wuji wanted to find out for himself. However, just as he stepped out, an extremely dazzling divine halo exploded in the sky. The brilliant divine halo shot directly towards Nanhai Wuji, causing him to stop in his tracks. He took a step back and saw a golden divine door appear, separating the space. Then a silhouette slowly rose into the air and floated there, blocking in front of Nanhai Wuji. When they saw the person, everyone's gazes were frozen there, as they revealed looks of amazement. Many people in the village, including the cultivators of the Muyan family, were also looking at the silhouette in surprise. How is this possible? Muyan Long said in a low voice. The silhouette floating in midair was actually old Ma. He was someone who never stood out, and whom many people believed was an ordinary person who could not cultivate. He had never revealed the aura of a cultivator. He was just an ordinary person. However, his one attack was powerful beyond comparison and blocked Nanhai Wuji's path. He was also a giant-level figure. Old Ma! Exclaimed Yi Futian as he looked up at the silhouette. He had already speculated that there was more to Old Ma than met the eye. However, he was still astonished when he witnessed Old Ma's ability. He was actually so powerful. No wonder Old Ma seemed exceptionally confident recently. He probably was not planning on hiding this fact. Spatial divine halos radiated from Old Ma's figure, seemingly forming its own domain, as he stared at Nanhai Wuji. You are still unqualified to meet Master, Old Ma said as he looked at Nanhai Wuji. At that moment, Old Ma raised his head and looked into the distance. A few beams of frightening aura came from afar and descended upon Four Corners Village. The next moment, he saw a few illusory figures appear above them. When these figures appeared, the space seemed to be frozen. Countless divine lights rained down and enveloped everyone. Even the powerful Renhuangs felt that they were insignificant. Yi Futian also looked over in that direction. 3 figures had arrived. These 3 figures appeared ethereal, seemingly somewhat illusory, like they weren't corporeal. It was as though they were spirits who had left their bodies. They also seemed as though they were formed from the will of the Great Path, and had come from beyond this world, descending upon Four Corners Village. Old Ma looked up at them. Beams of divine light shone, attempting to block off the 3 figures. However, the 3 figures immediately passed through the divine light and continued to advance. We heard that Four Corners Village was about to join the world, so we came over specifically to pay Master a visit, a voice said. The voice filled the space and caused the entire village to tremble. The next moment, the 3 silhouettes became 3 beams of divine light descended upon the private school. At the same time, a 4th aura appeared. A dazzling divine halo shot up into the heavens, causing brilliant divine light to appear in the sky above. Everyone knew that this was Master. Who could the three figures be? The crowd was astonished. Old Ma had displayed his powerful ability, yet he had actually been unable to block off the three of them. It was apparent how frighteningly powerful the three figures were. At this moment, even Nanhai Wuji did not move. He naturally knew who those three figures were. They were three existences who could cause the Shangqing domain to tremble by just stomping their feet. Today they had come together. It was apparent how highly they viewed Four Corners Village, as well as Master. The importance of the village was far greater than anyone could imagine. Four Corners Village joining the world had immediately spurred them to pay a visit. Yi Futian glanced at the crowd. He saw that the members of the top forces of the Shangqing domain all revealed respectful expressions. He roughly guessed what level of existence the three figures who arrived were at. They were probably among the few standing at the peak of the Shangqing domain, who came to Four Corners Village, wanting to see Master's ability. As he turned around, Yi Futian looked towards the private school. For beams of divine light immediately pierced the heavens. Although a battle did not ensue, an unparalleled might enveloped the space. Divine phenomena even appeared in the village at the same time. A golden-winged giant pung bird spread its wings and soared in the sky. A divine hammer suppressed the heavens and the earth. An immortal old god stood in the sky. These divine phenomena were originally difficult to see. However, right now they had manifested. This scene caused the people in the village to be filled with awe. What level of existence was Master exactly? Over here. No one continued to battle. Everyone had stopped doing so. They understood that the most crucial battle was over where Master was. If Four Corners Village wanted to join the world and become a superpower, they had to pass this stage first. In that direction, the light grew brighter and brighter. Not long after, a blinding divine light radiated outwards. The next moment, among the divine light that burst forth, the crowd could faintly make out the three silhouettes disappearing in a flash. The suppressive aura disappeared without a trace in an instant. Retreat from Four Corners Village. Congratulations to Four Corners Village for joining the world. From this day forth, the Shangqing domain has another holy land. Ethereal voices cried out, causing the hearts of the crowd to tremble slightly. Even the chief elder of the Nanhai family, Nanhai Wuji, could not remain calm. Were the three figures acknowledging the position of Four Corners Village in the Shangqing domain? If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 2121, Master? Chapter 2121. Master. Not long after these voices were heard, the various cultivators all retreated from Four Corner Village. Very soon the cultivators from the outside left. Muyin Long and the other cultivators stood at the entrance of the village. They glanced back at it. They never imagined that they would still lose in the end. Master was stronger than he had imagined. Master managed to get three extraordinary figures to acknowledge Four Corner Village. From this day forth, Four Corner Village would stand at the peak of the Shangqing domain like the other superpowers. Although the village still had very few cultivators, their greatest power was already enough to solidify their status. Let's go, said Muyin Long as he turned to leave. Muyin Long looked at the village with a meaningful look. One day, he would surely return. The villagers were somewhat elated. Master had shocked his powerful opponents. Four Corner Village could join the world and cultivate, and would no longer be restricted from this day forth. They would be able to see the wider world, and would no longer be confined to the village. For many of the villagers who had never seen the outside world their entire lives, it was undoubtedly something to be excited about. They have left, Fongai said as he gazed into the distance. Things have finally quieted down, Old Ma also commented. They knew more about Master's ability than others. Of course, they were also unsure what level Master was at exactly. However, at least they knew that it was not something Nanhai Wuji could stand against. You lot, come over to where I am, a voice called out from afar. Old Ma and the others knew that Master was calling them over. They bowed and replied, Yes, Master. You come over as well, the voice called out again. Futian clearly sensed that this was directed at him. He bowed slightly and followed behind old Ma and the others as they headed over to the private school together. There were 6 people, namely old Ma Fanggai, Gu Huai, Shirkui, Blind Tai, and Futian. In reality, the village currently had 7 persons in charge. However, Duo Yu was still young, so he had not come along with them. Currently, these 6 people could represent the will of the entire village. Once they arrived at the private school, the 6 of them were very respectful. They saw a figure sitting quietly on a futon after they entered and walked into the square courtyard. This was the first time Futian had met Master. Master's sage-like body seemed somewhat ethereal. He seemed otherworldly, as though he was a deity that could not be comprehended by normal minds. Master greeted the 6 of them as they bowed slightly. Futian also did the same. Although he was standing before Master, he still could not sense Master's aura and could not confirm how powerful Master was. However, he knew that he was far inferior and could not compare to Master at all. "Sit down, all of you," Master said. The 6 of them nodded and sat themselves down in different spots. Four Corner Village will be joining the world. All of you must have been waiting for this to happen for a long time, Master said. Fanggai, Blind Tai, and the others did not say anything. Master seemed to have already seen through their thoughts. Indeed, they were supportive of the village joining the world. When Muyan Long suggested that the village should join the world, no one objected. No one would be willing to be forever confined to the village once they cultivated to a certain level. They also did not wish to see the younger generation remain in this small village forever. Even though the village was unique, this did not affect their yearning for the outside world. I know what all of you are thinking. Yet, do you know why I have always prevented Four Corner Village from entering the world? Master asked. The time was not right, Fanggai replied. That is one reason, Master said. Before this, you have all seen the end result of those who left the village. Most of them perished outside, and few made it back alive. Even fewer remained outside. However, among them, the hearts of a few had already moved away from the village after seeing the prosperity of the outside world. How would they be satisfied with staying in a village? Their hearts had already changed. The crowd thought of Muyan Lan. Currently, he was famous in the outside world and had become an extraordinary figure in Nanhai family. After marrying the princess of the Nanhai family, Muyan Lan indeed had a change of heart. With such a glorious life, what he pursued now was no longer that which he pursued before. That was why the village had its previous laws, Old Ma commented. That is also a very important reason, Master continued. Before this, the village was actually an imperfect world, and was also illusory. The laws of the land were also defective. This illusory world was bathed in the world of the relic. We have been living in a dual-layered space all this while. Some people could sense the way in the relic and attain the protection of the ancestors. Hence, they could cultivate. However, for the rest, if they forcefully cultivated, it would cause their cultivation to go haywire, and it would not end well. Old Ma is an exception. He died once before. However, it was a blessing in disguise as he formed his own great path. Yet, his cultivation stopped at that level, and he could still be consumed by it. I've always asked him to act cautiously. For many years, he has never displayed his ability. If Four Corner Village were to join the world under such conditions, it would have been meaningless as few people would have been able to leave. Master, then what exactly has caused the laws of the village to change? Fanggai inquired. If it was because the ancestors had manifested, why had they done so now and not sooner? Master advised. You do not need to know about this in detail. It might just be that right now is the best opportunity. Now, everyone in the village can cultivate freely. Even if they don't cultivate a flawless great path, it will not end in tragedy. However, as to what the village will do after it joins the world, all of you need to think carefully about it. In the future, the village will no longer be separated from the world. It will be the same as other forces, and will need to develop and expand. Otherwise, others will look down on us. The people who left the village before this are good examples to learn from. With Master around, what do we need to fear? Shirkui said. For many years, I never left this place for special reasons. I have been given restrictions and cannot leave the village. Hence, you will need to depend on yourselves in the outside world, Master continued. This caused them to be somewhat surprised. That meant that Master could only protect those in the village. Once one left the village, Master might not be able to do anything. Joining the world was the collective will of yourselves in Four Corner Village. Whether it is a blessing or a curse, you should go out and see the prosperity of the world. You are destined to pay some price for doing so. From this day forth, the village is no longer the village that does not concern itself with outside matters. Instead, we need to face the conflict of the outside world. I hope that all of you can defend your decision, Master continued. They nodded their heads seriously. They all had stern expressions. Master was reminding them and making sure that they were alert. Master recommended, of course, with your abilities, all of you will not lose to the other top forces. However, Four Corner Village has a serious generational gap. We do not need to act too hasty. I suggest that we fortify and increase everyone's cultivation planes and cultivate the next generation of cultivators. Understood, Old Ma said as he nodded his head. The juniors who inherited the divine techniques should grow very quickly. Their cultivation environment is far superior to that of all of you. They will be the future of Four Corner Village, Master said. That is all I have to say. All of you may leave. As they got up, Master looked at Yi Futian and said, You stay. Yi Futian felt somewhat strange. However, he still nodded his head and remained here. The others were perplexed. They did not know what Master wanted to say to Yi Futian. After they left, Master said to Yi Futian, Thank you. Yi Futian looked at Master. He then understood what Master meant. Before this, Feng Gai had asked what had caused the change of the laws. In reality, it was because of Yi Futian. He had changed everything. Master, you do not need to thank me. This was all a fateful encounter, Yi Futian replied. He himself did not have such ability. It was all because of the world tree. This isn't a coincidence. It is fate, Master replied. Fate? Yi Futian asked as he looked at Master incredulously. Master smiled slightly as he nodded his head and said, There are some things that I only understood after you came here. The fact that it was the right time now was because you came to Four Corner Village. All this is fate's design. I don't understand, Yi Futian said. You will naturally understand in the future. Master didn't explain, causing Yi Futian to be even more perplexed. What design did fate have in store for him? Why had Master said so? I will leave those children to you, Master continued. Yi Futian did not linger on the issue. If Master did not explain it further, he naturally had his reasons for doing so. I will do my best, Yi Futian said as he nodded his head. You may leave, said Master. Yi Futian got up, bowed, and then left. The village was peaceful. However, in the Shangqing domain, a storm had swept up. Countless people knew that Four Corner Village had joined the world. The superpowers had also acknowledged its existence. From this day forth, the village would be another superpower in the Shangqing domain. For a while, countless cultivators rushed over to Four Corner Continent. However, they did not do so to enter Four Corner Village. After they arrived, they began cultivating in Four Corner Continent. They were even prepared to settle down in the continent for the long term. Many cultivators from other continents migrated here. There were even some top forces with powerful renhuangs, who established cities in this desolate continent. In the world of cultivation, places that were near to superpowers would undoubtedly be prosperous. In the Shangqing domain, such a phenomenon was exceptionally obvious. In the Shangqing domain's upper 9 heavens, it was now a group of continents that were far more powerful than the countless continents beyond the upper 9 heavens. Currently, Four Corner Continent was beginning to develop. If they did not seize the opportunity now, they would not have such a chance in the future. Hence, for a long period of time after, countless cultivators migrated over. Cities were erected all over the continent. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.